So, and I'm sorry, I'm not very
No.
educated on
Ask
the
away.
developing and
I'm
things
probably
like
not
that.
either, so.
So, are there any requirements on keeping some of this green space old growth? And I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tear up about it, but change is hard. And believe me,
Yeah.
I'm teaching my 8-year-old that things change,
Yeah.
life keeps going. I know that things evolve. I do wonder if there's a way to keep some of that and have developers integrate that into these projects so that we're not just clearing a whole space, that you're leaving like a section of big trees so that you're not planting the little ones that will take another 100 years to be tall and beautiful, which is very attractive about Camas and what people love about it. So is there anything in place like that, or how do you balance that type of thing?
Well, another good example. First of all, good question. Yes, there's things that we do, and yes, we can always learn and try to do even better. I think Camas is pretty well known for the way they've protected a lot of the green space. Even though the growth has happened. So you look around different parts of Prune Hill and, the stuff that's happened around Fallen Leaf Lake and Lacamas Lake, and you see a lot of effort that's done to protect that. Well, what's done to protect that is you got to buy it. I mean, you got to find a way to put it into public ownership because, again, people have property rights and they can do what they want with their family property. Sometimes someone will have, let's say, grown up in this community, they see it advancing, and now that's their opportunity to cash in on what's happened here. They didn't want that change to happen, but now they're dealing with it. So you've got that balance. But the lake project, and I think you're probably referring to, is one that's pretty vivid because you had kind of the last section of forest that was on Lake Road, and a chunk of that recently was removed so that some housing could happen. Those are the kind of things people notice, and it's very noticeable. And as a reminder, I mean, when I was a kid growing up in Camas, that whole hillside was called the Black Forest, and there were no houses there, and used to camp in there and fish in there. So it's really changed a lot. But that one, it's noticeable. And so we did work with the developer. They wanted to do a very different subdivision there than what eventually happened. And that negotiation, it's all part of public record now, but it was a bit contentious, and they didn't like what we wanted them to do, and we didn't like what they wanted to do, and so we worked through and tried to come up with a compromise. And the only thing we could really do is buy as much of that development's open space as possible and put it into city protection. And we actually got a little bit of criticism for that. Some people said, you're buying too much open space and you're spending too much money on that. But it was for that very reason. It was to try to protect as much of that area as we possibly could to keep that natural flow. We have our organized trail system maps, and that's all adopted and trying to make those connections that a lot of us use, but there's some holes. We're working with both the public and the private side to make those connections. We have a tool available to us called the Developers Agreement, which allows us to say, okay, well, if you do this for us, for example, protect this little certain area or put in this trail or add this little private park, well, then maybe we can help out on this as far as maybe your lot can be just a little smaller than it previously would have been, so you can get a few more lots in to make up for that. So there's some tools that we have, and staff works really hard. Our staff knows our community. They understand the values and what people like about it. So they work really hard to try to find those wins. But in the end, what I have learned in this job is we're just not going to be able to please everyone. But we work really hard at trying to find a good balance to keep this a really special place. So I would be the last person to say we're perfect, but I would be the first person to say we're trying really hard, and definitely are open to feedback and to opportunities and ideas how to do it better.